Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your host, Steve Bassnett, and I would like to welcome you on behalf of CANASA and Security Canada to our weekly online learning session. I would also like to say a special thank you to Axon Public Safety Canada for their support and sponsoring today's session. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Stefan Sherman, Senior Regional Manager of Axon Public Safety Canada, and Paul Baziak, VP of Sales at CanCom Security Incorporated. Steph helps law enforcement to make better use of technology in order to empower officers to do their jobs more effectively in the communities. His background is in software development, sales, product management, and IT. He is passionate about technology and how it can be used to make our lives better. Paul has over 30 years of experience in the security industry relating to the design of corporate security systems, working with CSOs and project managers, providing value and knowledge to clients to assist them in achieving their company's goals. Feel free to type any questions you may have during the session into the Q&A window below, and Paul and Steph will respond during that portion roughly 20 minutes from now. I'll now turn the session over to Paul and Steph. Welcome, guys, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Steve, very much. Appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here to present to you virtually today. As Steve mentioned, my name is Stefan Sherman, and I'm a regional manager for Axon in Canada, which means my primary role is to work with police services as well as private security organizations across Canada to essentially help them evaluate and adopt some of our various technologies, including body-worn cameras, which we're going to talk about today. So a primary focus for this afternoon is on body-worn cameras, specifically within the private security market. So I'm going to walk through, or start by walking through, some important aspects of what you should know if you're thinking about deploying body-worn cameras. And then Paul is going to walk through and provide an overview of how his team is using body-worn cameras at CanCom. So before we jump in, Paul, do you want to give a quick intro as well?
Thanks, Steph. Paul Baziak, Vice President of Sales at CanCom Security. We're a privately owned security company based in Toronto. We have offices in Ottawa, Windsor, Kelowna, BC, and some manufacturing facilities in the US. And I look forward to answering any questions from anybody.
All right. Thanks, Paul. So let's start by covering some of the basics. So these are some of the things, the important things that you should really think about if you're considering a body-worn camera deployment. Now, because of our limited time today, this is really going to be more of an overview. I'm not going to go into a tremendous amount of detail. So if you do have questions, we'll try to save time at the end. And then if not, feel free to contact me directly afterwards. And I will provide, both Paul and I will provide our contact information in case you want to send us any correspondence afterwards. All right, so let's take a look at some of the basics. First, from a technical standpoint, these are really the things that you want to consider. And often we really encourage our organizations to test this in the field. So before you actually jump into a deployment, if you haven't had any past experience, not sure about the solution you want to choose, or just want to get some more experience, definitely encourage you to do a test and evaluation, and you'll get a really good sense of how all this actually works for your security guards. But one of the big factors from a technical standpoint is battery life. Whether your guards are working 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, you want to make sure that when one of your guards goes to activate their camera, especially for an important event or interaction at the end of their shift, that they're able to actually capture that. So the last thing you want is for their battery to be dead at the end of the shift. Resolution is important. You want to be sure that your cameras are going to capture really good quality video as well as audio to make sure you can see and hear exactly what happened during any of these interactions. Field of view is all about what you actually see in front of the camera, and is usually going to present a pretty good wide angle of view for your videos. You want to see that versus a very kind of narrow focus, like what you'd see in taking a video on a cell phone, for example, in portrait mode. With our cameras, we offer about 146-degree field of view, which is really going to offer a lot of what the officer will see in front of them, including what they typically see in their peripheral vision. Storage is important. You want to make sure that your cameras are going to store enough video footage so that if a guard has to work a little bit longer, or if they can't offload their video right away, they're able to have enough storage to keep using the camera before they offload that video the next time. Pre-event buffer is another important one, which essentially allows you to capture not only the entire incident of what happened, but also what led up to that incident. So the way this works is that most cameras today have what's called this pre-event buffer, which is essentially the period where the camera is just constantly recording and overwriting itself, anywhere from every 30 seconds up to 2 minutes. And so whenever one of your users, whenever one of your guards activates their camera to capture an interaction, we tack on that initial 30 seconds or up to 2 minutes at the beginning of that video. So not only do you see that entire interaction, but you see some of those important moments that led up to and caused your guard to actually capture that event on camera, which more often than not, it usually contains some really important information that you want to capture. And then lastly is all about the data transfer. So after you've captured a number of interactions during a shift, how do you actually transfer that video to wherever that's being stored, whether that's on premise or in the cloud? You want to make sure you're factoring that in as well. It should be very easy for your officers to do that. With our solution, we offer a docking station where your officers or your guards can literally just take the camera off, plug it into a docking station, and then they're done. So super easy workflow from their standpoint. Operationally, there's a number of things that you want to think about as well. And again, these are really good things to test during an initial evaluation period. First thing is you want to make sure that the technology is easy to use. And this is for us a really, really important design principle. We want to make sure that we're not adding something for your guards that is cumbersome or difficult to use. It should be really straightforward and simple from their standpoint. You need to think about also how and where they're going to be mounting the cameras on their uniform. What kinds of uniforms are your guards wearing, and can the different mount options accommodate your different uniform types? And oftentimes in the colder climates, we even see organizations that have purchased multiple or have different mounting options for different uniform types, maybe for an outerwear coat that they can quickly throw on and have that mount all ready to go. Ruggedness is all about cameras should be designed to withstand some of the rigors and the environment that they're going to be used in, and potentially being knocked around and dropped, et cetera. So they should be highly rugged. Evidence tagging is all about how you're categorizing and labeling these interactions, these videos after they've happened, because you want to be able to quickly go back and search for and find those important videos after the fact. And by tagging them, that allows you to more easily do that. Now that can be done either by the officer in the field right after the interaction. It can be done in an automated fashion, or it can be done at the end of the officer's shift or your guard's shift, which is likely the least preferable. So usually we recommend that your users and your guards would be doing this during their shift, so that it's still fresh in their memory. We often get a lot of questions around whether or not it's okay to do a pooled or shared model for cameras versus personal issued. And the answer is it really depends. It's more of an agency preference. However, you do want to consider, if you're looking at a pooled or a shared model, you want to make sure that you have enough cameras to fully staff 2 back-to-back shifts. And the reason for that is you want to make sure that when the next officer is coming on, the next guard is coming on their shift, you want to have a freshly charged camera that's ready to go, so that it's going to last that entire shift. And then lastly is the policy and procedure, which is really important, that you have a well-documented policy and procedure so that your guards know what's expected of them in terms of when and how they're supposed to activate their cameras, When are they supposed to be deactivating their cameras? When is it okay to completely turn them off? Is it okay to mute their cameras, and is that allowed? So all these different operational aspects that you want to make sure are very well documented in your policy and procedure documentation, and then communicated to your team that's going to be wearing the cameras. And in that same light, in terms of communicating to your users, the other thing you probably want to communicate is what this means to your users. So why are you doing this, and what are the benefits to your organization and to the security guards who are going to be wearing the cameras? This differs for each organization, each agency, but these are some of the more common benefits that we see. And really what it comes down to for most organizations is it's all about best evidence collection. So by having that record and a true accounting of what actually happened means that you'll be able to resolve complaints much faster by having that video evidence. It means that you'll be able to, in turn, reduce the overall costs involved with any kind of investigation as a result of those complaints. And at the end of the day, your security guards are going to have more peace of mind knowing that whenever they have these interactions, they're able to capture the entire story of what actually happened. And then as a side effect of wearing the cameras, another positive benefit is that it tends to promote better behavior by those that you're having the interaction with, or that your guards are having the interaction with. When people know that they're on camera, it tends to change their attitude, and usually for the better, which I think in turn really helps the stress on your guards as well. And then lastly, you can think of body-worn cameras as a great training tool to not just go by a verbal accounting or written accounting of what happened for training purposes, but actually having that video record and going back to be able to replay that and use that for coaching and training is a really valuable asset as well. Another very common question is the cost. What do body cameras cost? How much does it cost to run a program? There's often a lot of misconceptions around the costs. There's often a lot of perceptions around and inflated costs as well. And vendors might have different kinds of models in terms of how they do their pricing. But really, at the end of the day, it comes down to the items that you see here. So first off is the hardware, which is the cameras and the docks and the mounts. That's really the hardware cost of it. Every solution on the market is going to have that inherent cost. And then usually most vendors will offer a built-in manufacturer warranty, which might be more than enough for many organizations. However, you might want to look at purchasing an extended warranty so that you're covered beyond that first warranty period. You should also think about spare hardware. So in the event that any of your body cameras maybe malfunction or get damaged in the field, what is the acceptable period for you for when that would be replaced? And some organizations will want to have spares on hand so that they can swap those cameras out immediately. So that's another cost you want to factor in. Software, you want to look at what kind of software is required to manage the solution. Similarly, storage, whether you're doing storage either on-premise or in the cloud is another factor you want to think about. And then future replacements. So when you're implementing and when you think about a body-worn camera solution or program, this is likely not something you're going to be implementing this year and just forget about, or it's going to stop next year. This is likely more of a long-term program and investment that you need to think about. And so with that, you probably want to look at how are you going to handle technology as it evolves down the road. So how are you going to handle camera replacements or upgrading to newer technologies? Just like you get new cell phones every few years, you might want to look at how you're doing that from a body-worn camera standpoint. This is something that we actually build into our programs, along with building in spare hardware. We build that right into our program so that you don't have to think about it. It makes it really, really simple from a overall budgeting and forecast standpoint. And then the last component is the administration and the training. So ideally, the administrative or the management portion of the body-worn cameras is very simple and straightforward. But you do want to think about that. Who's going to be managing it? Is it a team of people? Is it a person who's doing something else today that can be asked or tasked to do the body-worn camera program management? And then the training, how are you going to actually do the training, which is something that a lot of vendors should be able to help with as well. So that's the camera technology itself. So you've gone out and purchased a number of cameras. You're good to go, right? Well, it's not always that simple. You need to think about a number of other factors. It's more than just capturing of the actual footage for your body-worn cameras. There's a lot of other things that you need to consider. And one of those factors is, what are the other types of digital evidence that you need to capture in addition to body-worn camera footage? So as an example, if you're doing any kind of internal investigation in response to a complaint, you're more than likely going to be looking at third-party CCTV footage. Maybe you're going to be looking at or using and capturing cell phone video, maybe looking at social media information, etc. So it's, again, more than just the body-worn camera footage. So all that information needs to be actually stored and managed somewhere. And then it's not just about the storage of that evidence. It's also about the entire workflow, what happens through the lifetime of that digital evidence. So, and even if you're looking at body-worn camera footage by itself, you still need to think about that workflow. So for example, how are you actually uploading or transferring the evidence from the camera to wherever it's being stored? Is that stored in a central repository? How will you actually catalog and later find and retrieve that evidence that you're looking for? How will you play it back or potentially redact and blur out any sensitive information if someone's face needs to remain private? And then eventually, how will you share that ideally electronically, either internally or externally if it needs to go to court, or if you need to share it with a police service? So that's really the bigger picture that you want to think about, in addition to the body-worn camera hardware as well. And so at Axon, we're really focused on building an entire network or ecosystem of connected devices and applications that all work together seamlessly in order to ultimately help your users, help your teams and security guards to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently. And then we provide all of the tools, all of the devices in order to help do that as well. So for example, body-worn cameras, in-car cameras, drones or UAVs, and then the cloud-based central repository for your digital evidence management, which is what we call Axon Evidence. So that's really the big picture in terms of how the technology works and some of the things you want to think about. I'm going to turn it over to Paul now, who's going to talk more about what they're doing at CanCom and their current body-worn camera deployment. So Paul, do you want to take it away?
Sure, thanks, Steph. So we entered into a purchase agreement with Axon almost a year ago, where we have requested and received 22 Axon 3 body cameras. And we did this because we wanted to offer something of more value to our end user clients, more than just a written report or an online report. And through some meetings with some our colleagues in the industry, we were starting to see that there were other companies obtaining this tool, which is really valuable. So in order to be a differentiator, like probably most of the people that are in this meeting, is we needed to set ourselves different from the competition. We needed to do something different and to be better or offer more value. So after a presentation of Axon and finding out that this would be a good tool for our mobile security guards, we made the commitment for 22 of these that are mainly on our mobile guards who are responding to alarms or doing patrols. And we also deploy them selectively for short event coverage, whether it's in a bad area or where we think we might want to record what's happening. So the video is extremely powerful when you first see one of your employees wearing this. The very first night that we wore this, one of our mobile guards was in York region here in Ontario. And he was in the drive-through of an A&W at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it just so happened that the car in front of him, who was at the window to do the food transaction, the driver wasn't moving. So our security guard got out of his car, he walked up to that person, and that person was completely unconscious. As soon as our guard made further, verbal contact with him, the driver quickly woke up, floored the accelerator, and left the drive-through at a high rate of speed to the point where he mounted a curb and ended up in a parking lot next door to the A&W. We quickly contacted 911, and York Regional Police came on site, and it was later determined that the person in that vehicle was DUI. But what really happened was two things. We caught with the body camera what happened when our security guard was speaking with the individual. And then we caught what happened afterwards when the car finished crashing into the neighboring parking lot. And then our interaction with the York Regional Police Service. This was all recorded. And from our perspective, it was a lesson in training as to what went right, well, what didn't go right, what could we do differently. And then sort of a comical part at the end, because it's on video and this is a new tool, our mobile guard called his girlfriend, and I'll leave it at that. So we learned a lot from the very first deployment, and it really was the foundation for our policies and procedures with respect to when to activate it, when to turn off the Axon Body Camera 3 product. And then our interaction with York Regional Police. They are, as Stefan has advised me, they're already a user, I believe, of the Dashcam Fleet 2, and I believe the Axon 3 at a future date. So great capture of what happened in evidence, securely uploaded to the cloud. And then for us internally, we can review it with our mobile supervisors to see what can we do differently next time. So this is really just a shot of our team in their uniform. All of our mobile guards wear the Axon 3. Some of you may already know this, but if you don't, this is highly compatible with Toronto Police and any other police service in Ontario that is using the Axon product. We can take our camera to any of their police offices, and we can put our body camera in their docking station and securely upload the footage to the cloud and share it with them. Alternatively, we can do a link where we can email them afterwards and only give them the footage that they require, and go from there. But it has been well received by our clients. There has been one client that has said, I'm okay with you coming on the property with it, and you're wearing it, but for now, I would like to ask that you not record anything. So there's only been one really client that made that request, but every other client has embraced it. Where required, when we do a written report, we'll attach some still pictures, or we'll attach some video. And it's pretty valuable what you can capture in video that you can't explain in detail in a written report that is sometimes missed. Next slide, Steph. And this is just a snapshot of the rest of the services that CanCom offers. We're an installation provider of intrusion systems, access control, camera systems, service and maintenance. So part of the technology that we've invested in addition to the Axon product, is our mobile fleet. This has been a great cost reducer, operating cost for us, as far as zero fuel consumption, oil changes. So the reason why we bring this up is because this is the next investment that we're making, not just in the cars, but we're hopefully expecting by the end of this month or next, that we'll be deploying the new Fleet 3 Axon dash cam, which we're looking forward to putting one in the Tesla, and we're going to put another in the Jeep for the northern region where we have clients in Northern Ontario. And we do just one more thing. We do have a team of licensed armed guards, and there is another product that Stefan can probably expand upon, where the camera will be activated as soon as any of our officers unholsters their firearm. So that's a product that we'll be looking at as well. And if we have any money left in the budget, we might look at the drone product as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So I think that was a great overview of your program. One question I did have for you, and I think we've got a few minutes to jump into some Q&A. Can you talk a little bit about your evaluation process and how you went about doing that prior to making any purchase, and how that was helpful or important to you?
So we did a lot of online research. We talked to some colleagues in the same service industry as us, and there wasn't a lot of companies that were using any body cams. There were a few that were using sort of a MacGyvered. It looked like a pager, but it was a camera, and it had a wire attached to a battery that was also attached to your belt. So kind of clumsy, not very ruggedized, and not very durable. So we were referred to Axon by a friend of ours who we used to work with at a company called Intercon Security, and they were already using this product, and it was highly recommended. And we did a trial with our mobile team, and we felt that it was the best solution, because I think what Axon did is they really leveraged all of their experience and knowledge from their other law enforcement products, and ended up with this design where I could say on the second shift of using this on our mobile guards, is we got into an arrest situation, and the camera held up, it recorded, there was no damage. It actually was ripped off of our mobile officer's vest with a MOLLE connection, and everything was fine. So we were looking for a quality product that had a long duration of record, that can handle the cold weather that we have up here in Ontario. And probably just as important, or if not more, is the secure storage of the video evidence that I think is on a lot of people's minds. Is they want to ensure that it's secure and it's not being accessed by the wrong people, and either manipulated or shared on YouTube, which we see a lot of.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Paul. Steve, do we have questions that we wanted to get to from the audience at this point?
Yeah, thank you, Paul and Steph. That was great. Anybody have any questions? Please type them in now, and I'll start reading them out. And first question was with regards of sharing the presentation, just so everybody knows, if you have selected yes to be contacted, Steph will send out a copy of the presentation when we're done. If not, shoot me an email or shoot Steph an email. I think the next slide there will have his contact info, and we can make sure we get a copy to you when it's done. Next up, are you able to advise which Canadian and US municipal corporate security organizations are currently using BWC? And I'll preface that with if you want to handle that one offline individually, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you just at a high level. It's really, we've seen a lot more adoption over the past probably 12 to 18 months. Publicly, I'm sure many of you have seen agencies like Toronto Police Service, Peel Regional Police, et cetera, that have begun their body-worn camera deployments, both of them using Axon technology, as well as Durham Regional Police just announced their recent plans to broaden their deployment, which will be with Axon as well. So we're seeing a lot more deployments across Canada, which I think they're going to just become more and more important to many agencies. And similarly, we're seeing the same level of interest from security organizations as well, like CANCOM. I think it's really fantastic to see them kind of leading the trail and being really innovative. And they've got some really great ways they're looking at how they're using technology like both body worn and in-car. And I think there's going to be a lot of other security organizations that are going to follow in that as well. I'm happy to provide more details if any of you do want to connect with me offline or Paul. I'm more than happy to answer those questions as well.
I can add to that, Steph. to the gentleman that asked that, I can say with confirmation, the first time I've seen it in an RFP was about 2 months ago, where the city of Oshawa put in the RFP that they wanted a body-worn camera as part of the solution, and they had a preference for Axon. So it's the first time in 30 years I've seen an RFP ask for body-worn cameras in the RFP.
Yeah, it's excellent. Moving on, next question. Does it work with third-party VMS like Milestone? Does it provide live video from the VMS mobile app?
So I can take that one. The way we've designed our system is to serve as a central repository to manage all of your digital evidence, regardless of the source. So certainly if it's coming from an Axon device, like one of our body-worn cameras or in-car camera, that integration, that transfer of the data is going to be seamless. But we can ingest data from pretty much any source. As long as it's a digital file, you can upload it into evidence.com. We even have some conversion tools to make it easier to play back third-party and sometimes proprietary videos with some of these obscure codecs that you need to have that custom player to look at. So we make it really easy to not just store, but also to play back and then manage all that digital evidence. Now, if you've got a third-party VMS like Milestone, you probably have already invested in a separate storage solution for just that video. So you probably don't want to be duplicating it. But if any of that video needs to be shared electronically with a police service or for courts, then you can easily transfer that over into Axon Evidence, our evidence management solution, to then manage and store it from there, and share it from there.
Okay, thanks, Steph. Next question. Are there any privacy law concerns as in some US states?
So I can touch on that from a high level, and then maybe Paul, if you want to add from your experience from us within the security industry. I think you definitely want to be aware of any regional, provincial privacy laws. There are certainly privacy laws that are applicable to municipal agencies across Canada. There's the privacy commissioner within Ontario. So depending on what province you're in, you want to check with your provincial legislation around that. And then it's a matter of adopting and implementing that policy, and we can help to make sure that the technology supports whatever it is, that policy, to reflect those privacy regulations.
No, that's a great point, Steph. It actually brings up the governing body here in Ontario that oversees security guards and private investigators. Wants to see that you have policies and procedures. So that's one recommendation I would make to any company in this meeting, is that you have policies and procedures for body-worn cameras. And it's as basic as they want to know, they would like to know which guard signed it out, date and time as a pure basic, so that they can track at a future date who was using this camera for what date and time, and maybe what evidence was captured during that time. So this is a clear example of the technology is ahead of any governing bodies rules and regulations for this type of technology.
Great, thank you both. Next question. What is the distance of the audio recording?
So I can touch on the way that the audio works is that the Body 3 cameras, the Axon Body 3s, have 4 built-in microphones. I think the range will depend on how loud that audio is and what else is going on. But the way the cameras are designed, they're intended to be able to filter out different kinds of background noises. Like if you're at the side of the road and there's traffic back and forth, it's gonna filter out some of that background noise, so that the voice doesn't get washed out and picks that audio up. And another important reason why you do want to do your own technical evaluations, to make sure that you're really happy with whatever the audio or video quality is going to be at the end of the day.
Great, thank you. And our last question, how do you deal with storage and access of a very large library of video?
So both important questions. From a storage standpoint, that will go back to how you're planning to, what is your strategy for storage, for storing the evidence. With our solution, Axon Evidence, all of that is done in the cloud. And that means that we can scale that up really, really quickly and pretty much at a moment's notice. So we've got different kind of plans, whether you want to have a fixed or a la carte amount of storage, or whether you want to have unlimited storage. We have different options based on what you actually need. But because our system is cloud-based, it means that it's highly scalable. Doesn't matter whether you've got a couple of files versus thousands of files and thousands of gigabytes, it really doesn't matter. And then the second part of that is who then has access to that, which is a really important question. You want to make sure that your data is safe and it's secure. So all of the roles and responsibilities within the system, who has access to what actions they can perform, are all defined by each organization. So with CanCom, Paul's team has the ability to define who can actually view and play back videos, who's allowed to change any of the, or add any metadata for videos, who's allowed to redact, et cetera. So there's a lot of control that you have around those permissions.
Great, thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of today's session. Thanks for joining us, and thank you to Steph and to Paul and Axon Public Safety Canada and CanCom Security for their support. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, be well.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care, guys.